everyone. Today I'm going to answer the question, should I do intermittent fasting? Because this is something that has come up more and more. And what I want to say about intermittent fasting does not only apply to intermittent fasting, so I think it's important. Um, the first step in anyone being able to answer this question, should I do intermittent fasting? Should I do Weight Watchers? Should I do Jenny Craig? Should I do any of it? Well, there's no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. There is no should or shouldn't. The question is, what do you want? The question goes back to you. What do you want? What's your end goal? Because once you can identify what your end goal is, then you know if it's right or wrong. Is intermittent fasting going to help you achieve what your end goal is? Then it's right for you. Other people who have different goals, maybe it's not right for them. So it depends, first of all. The point here is you don't want to ask me or anyone else, is this right? Or is this good? Or should I do it? You never want to ask anyone what you should do around food and eating. What you want to do is get clear on what you want and where you're headed and if it's going to help you reach your goal. It's not about my opinion. It's not about anyone's opinion. You want to live your own life. So that's that. But on that note, in terms of figuring out, is it what you actually want to do? Again, you want to consider not just what intermittent fasting might provide, you also want to consider the consequence of the decision that you make. So it's not as though we can blindly go on some sort of diet or meal plan or anything like that and have there not be a consequence. So the point is, anything can be good or bad. We just have to consider the entirety of it. And so I say that because when it comes to intermittent fasting, sometimes it kind of doesn't qualify as a diet because we forget that instead of counting calories and macros and points, we're just looking at the clock. So in a lot of ways, psychologically, it is the same because we're not listening to our bodies. It ultimately comes back to the same point. The reason that we get very disconnected from ourselves and our own intuitive wisdom when we're following any kind of diet plan is because we're looking for clocks or calories versus hungry and full. So in that sense, it is just like every other diet because it gets you out of your own system and it requires that you rely on something outside of yourself. So the reason that I say that is because when you're thinking about, should I do this diet? Should I go on this? Should I try this? The first question you want to ask is, then what? Then what? Because weight loss is not the question. We all know how to lose weight. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've done it before. Weight loss is not the question. Weight loss that is sustainable and healthy is something that is the question. That's what we're working on, or at least if you're working with me, that's what we're working on. So the question is not how do I lose weight? The question is how do I lose weight and keep it off in a healthy way? So if you are planning on doing something like intermittent fasting because you want to get the weight off your body, understandable. The question for you is then what? When you don't feel like looking at the clock anymore, when you want to just eat based on your life, how you feel, when you don't want to do intermittent fasting anymore, then what? What's your plan? Because we all know how to get the weight off. We just don't know how to keep it off. So all of these diets, all of these plans, they always work. We know that they work until they don't. It's not that diets don't work. They do. They just can't end. So the question is always, then what? And we have to consider the consequence. If we do something like intermittent fasting, well, we have to know what's the plan after that. Same is true for counting points. Same is true for anything. The question is then what? And my advice is if you don't want to do it every day for the rest of your entire life, then don't start. Because your options are either do it forever or cross that bridge when you get to it, when you just don't feel like following the plan anymore. This is why they're unsustainable. The reason that they're unsustainable is not just physical, it's also psychological. at a certain point, you just don't want to live that way anymore. And that's when the weight comes back. So you just have to consider, then what? It's not to say dieting or intermittent fasting won't work. It will work to get weight off, but that's when it becomes about clarifying your goals. If you know that your goal, your end point is, I don't just want to lose weight, I also want to listen to my body, eat intuitively, feel food freedom, peace in my body, all of those things. If those are your goals, this is where when I'm working with clients, it becomes a mix of physical goals. Sure, there's nothing wrong with having a physical goal, but pairing it with what I like to call invisible goals, because there is mental, emotional, spiritual, social, environmental health to consider. All of them are invisible and we can't measure them, but they make us human. And so if we zoom out and we start to think of ourselves as a real complex, holistic human being, not just a physical body, the question becomes, then what, in terms of not only what are you going to do with food and eating, but what's your lifestyle going to look like? Because if your goal is drop 20 pounds or whatever, weight oriented, then sure, intermittent fasting can help you get there. If your goal is drop 20 pounds, feel free to eat when and what I want, not have to rely on the clock system, if that's your goal, then no, intermittent fasting will not get you there. But the main point here is there is no right or wrong, and there is no good or bad. You have to make this decision for yourself. It's not about my opinion. It's not about anyone's opinion. And it's not about will it work or not. We all know how to get the weight off our bodies. That is never the question. You want, if what you want is long-term health, what you want is not a diet in any form. If what you want is weight loss, no consideration of health, then sure, it can probably do that for you. But it's not about what I think. It's not about what anyone thinks. It's about you getting clear on what you want and then taking action that will help you get there. If what you want is to intuitively eat and feel free with food and eating and peaceful in your body and your experience in eating and movement, then what you want to do is not follow any kind of plan or program where the information is coming from outside of you. You don't want a number to tell you anything. And the way that I think about this is our left brain and our right brain. Our left brain is very data-based, analytical, logic, reasoning, intellect, of that kind. The right brain is expression, creativity, intuition. And so dieting, all kinds of dieting, gets us totally into our left brain. We're counting, we're doing math, there's formulas to figure out what to feed our body. It's a totally cognitive process. We're not listening, we're not tuning in. And so if what you want is to end up at a place where intuitive eating feels accessible and comfortable for you, then that's something you want to start to work on. Is not only how are you going to feed your body healthy food, but how are you going to start to tune in to your own body, your own needs, what you want. And there's a lot to say on that. But that's the thing, is you want to start with your end goal, and that will help clarify what is good, bad, right, wrong for you where you are right now. So that, I think, is all I have to say right now, because there's so much more to say, but I'm going to leave it there for intermittent fasting and everything of the like. So if you have any questions, as always, please leave them here. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And I hope you're doing well, and I love you. Mwah.